The chair now recognizes the vice chair of the subcommittee, Mr. Taylor, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Collins and Ranking Member Wilson, for holding this hearing today, and thank you to our witnesses for their testimony and insight. I represent a rural district which has a significant amount of aging water infrastructure. Most of the cities and towns in my district have water infrastructure that has well exceeded its intended lifespan, which is unacceptable. I'm excited to work with members of this committee to ensure our nation's water infrastructure is safe and resilient. There's often a lengthy backlog of projects awaiting state revolving fund awards, with some projects taking years to receive funding. With aging infrastructure well past its intended lifespan, many of these projects cannot last years without incident. Earlier this year in the town of Waverly, Ohio, in my district, there was a water leak that caused water to be shut off and a boil advisory for over a week, and they had 8 different water main breaks within a 1-year period there. Disruptions like this shouldn't happen in the United States in 2025. What practices and policies does Congress need to enact to ensure that water infrastructure nearing the end of its intended lifespan receives funding so Americans have access to safe and healthy water? And I'll open that up to whoever wants to jump on it first.
I'll take the first thing. Like you said, Texas has a lot of rural systems just like you do. One of the problems with the drinking water SRF is that it's geared toward compliance issues, not necessarily leaks and breaks, which are very important. And some communities will never get to the top of the list. Like I said, we had $4 billion of demand, we had $400 million to deliver. So maybe allowing the states a little more leeway in what is more important to them as far as funding, so they can concentrate instead of what EPA decides what's more important.
Anyone with anything to add to that?
I would just say, look at the funding levels. Look at what clean water is actually receiving compared to other areas within our T&I community. Transportation receives a ton of funding. You know, broadband receives more than water. And we sit there, well, COVID taught us we can live without our roadways for a short period of time. We can live without broadband, but try living one day without water.
Okay. Good point. There have been continuous discussions on whether the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, which provides low-interest loans to rural cities for projects, should be issued as a federal grant instead of a federal loan. Based on my research, keeping the state revolving fund as a federal loan lowers utility bills for customers and provides additional funding for other water projects across the United States. Mr. Walker, can you elaborate on additional benefits of keeping the Clean Water State Revolving Fund as a low-interest loan compared to a grant?
Yes, sir, and in fact, that's one of the beauties of the SRF. You give me a $50 million grant, and I give away $50 million, that's it. But I can turn that $50 million into $300 million or $400 million, and it will revolve back and forth by leveraging. So that's the beauty of the subsidized loans.
Are there any drawbacks to the rural communities themselves if our SRF projects were awarded as a grant?
Most of the time, the cost of projects now is so large that there's not enough grant money in the world to deliver all those things. And we do a good job of making packages that make it more affordable, and spreading that out is a lot better too. Some of the rural communities cannot afford anything, unfortunately. And so you have to find, there is a need for loan grants, but as a whole, most of them can afford something, it's just that they don't want to sometimes.
Thank you. Everyone can agree that many of the procedures and processes the federal government requires when determining a water project can be tiresome, oftentimes unnecessary and costly. These burdensome processes are especially hard on rural America, where communities don't have resources to complete the applications even. Mr. Maticic, in your testimony, you mentioned how steps were taken in the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act that have helped streamline the process. Are there any other areas in the Clean Water Act, specifically WIFIA, that Congress needs to look at to further streamline the process and help deliver these crucial projects?
Thank you for that question, Congressman Taylor. I believe that there are opportunities to provide technical assistance that can maybe be very useful to some of the rural and smaller community applicants that you've referenced. I believe in terms of the bureaucratic and application processes, that encouraging more applicants to use that combination of projects where you can roll multiple projects into a single application, or the master agreement, where you can have a long-term program, or on the SRF level, could have a programmatic finance, where a single application can cover a variety of projects. I believe that encouraging more use of those mechanisms could be really important in reducing the level of bureaucracy and application costs.
Thank you very much. I yield back, Chairman.